Hey everyone, John for Popeyes Postcards. We're going to start a series here. This is based on a presentation I did for another YouTuber several years ago, probably 3 to 4 to 5 years ago. They wanted me to do a presentation on pretty much a beginner's guide to everything and all postcards. So I put together a PowerPoint presentation. It was the easiest way I could think to present all the information. And these videos actually ended up doing two videos. Each was over an hour and a half. So this is going to be over 3 hours total content of a beginner's guide to how to sell postcards on the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. We're going to break this up into sections. There's going to be naturally occurring segments. And this first one is pretty much going to be who I am, why do I consider myself an expert in postcards, and a little bit about why sell postcards. So let's go ahead and get started here. So my name's John Miller. I'm retired. I put in 26 years as a probation officer and was able to retire with a lovely pension. I've been on eBay since January of 1998, and I've been selling postcards since late 98. So 23 plus years of selling postcards. Go by Spinach Eater, Popeyes Postcards. Right now, currently, I have over 31,000 active postcard listings. According to eBay's site, I've sold in excess of 50,000 postcards, probably 60,000. I've also vend in antique malls, and I also vend at live postcard shows. And I sell about 7,000 postcards a year just on the internet. And of course, I have my YouTube channel, Popeyes Postcards. So this is what we're going to cover in this probably 8 to 9 part series. Why sell postcards? We're going to talk about a brief history of postcards and their eras, how to do identification and dating, what do people collect, so what should you be looking for, and what postcards to avoid. There's also going to be a section on non-postcards that you might encounter if you buy a large lot of postcards. Some other pieces of ephemera that you'll encounter. We're going to talk about sourcing, where to go, sorting, pictures, pricing based on research, and how I list postcards. We can talk about storage and inventory. I do have one video out there already about inventory, so I may not go as in depth on that section. We're going to talk about shipping. And tools and resources, that's going to be pretty much scattered throughout uh, this presentation. I think these videos are going to be anywhere between maybe 5 to 20 minutes long. It just depends on the topic and how much I have to talk about it. So, some disclaimers. Even though I just said I'm an expert, I'm really not an expert in postcards in a true sense of people who've been in the postcard business for a lot longer than I have. I consider that I'm working on my master's degree, getting ready to finish that up. If you liken my knowledge to like a educational experience, there's people out there just starting that only have, 6th or 7th grade education as it pertains to postcards. There's some people out there that have graduated high school and have entered college. I consider that I've only just now getting ready to finish my master's degree, and there's people out there in the doctorates and postdoctorates who have written books on postcards, and it's going to take me years before I'm even up with those people. So, and these are my views, my experiences, and your mileage may vary. You don't need to go out and spend $1,000 on postcards. You don't need to go out and buy a $300 scanner. You don't need to worry about shipping for free. Some of this is dated, so I tried to update it. But now with eBay Standard Envelope, the tracking is not that big of an issue anymore, and you don't really have to worry about losing your top-rated seller status. And you don't have to get rid of your current inventory of socks and shoes and clothing and knickknacks and stuff like that. Just roll in postcards as you find them. Don't just discard them as not being valuable. And with postcards, there's a lot to know. And this is just going to be basic user information, basic guide. Just after you're going to have to build up your own experience of years of handling postcards and watching what sold videos and watching the other YouTubers talking about postcards. And just with all that knowledge, you'll start to get the hang of postcards. But just want you to be aware that postcards can make you money. I will probably do 75,000 plus this year just on postcards. So there's a lot of money to be made on cards. So let's get into it. Why sell postcards? Worldwide, collecting postcards is #3 most popular collectible hobby. It's third behind coins and stamp collecting. And in the United States, sports cards get thrown in there, and that will bump postcards down. What has drawn me to selling postcards? It can bring in top dollar for low cost of goods. If you buy a huge lot of postcards, you're going to only be into those cards for maybe pennies. And you can sell some of those cards that you bought for pennies for hundreds of dollars. And you can buy a lot of quantity for a really low cost. And just as an example, here's 7,500 postcards from, this is several years ago, of $596, which is 8 cents per card. 75 pounds of postcards you could have had for 600 bucks. And who knows, there's maybe 4 or 5 cards in there that could have brought in that your money back. So you can buy a lot for a little cost average. Let me see. They're also easy to store, pack, and ship. I've shown you in that inventory. I have 34,000 postcards right here sitting next to me. That's my active inventory. And I can fit another 15,000 cards just in this very small space. Packing takes just a few seconds to throw it in an envelope. And shipping it's easy now with the eBay standard envelope. You're not going to get a whole bunch of returns for item not as described, broken, doesn't fit, or the color. You will get returns if someone has made a mistake on their purchase, if it's damaged in the mail, but I've only had one true return in the last 10 years out of probably 30 plus thousand cards, maybe even more. So I very, very rarely get returns with postcards. So this was from a couple years ago. I had 6,300 transactions, $43,000, zero return rate over 1,900 transactions. So that was years ago. And really, you only need 2 pictures. Get a scanner or use your camera, cell phone, just front and back. If you want to get into a third picture, yes, you can take a cropped in, a zoomed picture, or a picture of something interesting on the front or the stamp on the back, but you really only need 2 pictures. You don't need to measure anything. Pretty much they're either standard size, which is 3.5 by 5, or they're continental 4 by 6. There are some bigger ones and there are some smaller ones, but you don't need to measure them. And condition doesn't matter. So there are some cons to selling postcards. Just because it's an old postcard does not mean it's valuable. There are a lot of junk cards out there. It's scenic, uninteresting views that you're not going to get a lot of money for. And truthfully, you have to sell quantity over quality. If you want to make a lot of money, sales consistently, you need a lot of inventory, and you're not going to list common cards for $57.50 when everybody else is trying to sell those cards for $2. You're not going to sell your $57.50. I don't care. You're not going to do it. So the sweet spot seems to be $11 to $12 average. Again, large active inventory, and you probably need several thousand before you're going to see daily sales. Uh, your mileage may vary. And you got to wonder, at least I wonder, is the postcard hobby going to die off? I'm sure you've seen some of the videos of going to postcard shows. I'm one of the younger people there. Um, there's a lot of old 70s and 80-year-old people in this hobby, and you got to wonder, once they die off, who's going to collect postcards? Is the postcard category going to go away? I hope not, but it's just something to consider. And I get that because of this January 2018 article from the Metropolitan Postcard Club Minutes, where they did an article in the New York Times. It pretty much says it was quite a year and we continued to do well. Then he read the names of members who had died. And this is pre-COVID. So the presenter was like, let's face it, we need to get new members. We need to get younger members. Unless there's a new generation of postcard collectors, club members say there will be no one to save postcards from the recycling plant. So definitely an old person's game. So hopefully get some new blood into selling postcards. And really, no one needs postcards. When you need food or clothing or shelter, you're not worrying about buying a postcard. So no one needs this. And people just don't know the value of grandma's postcards. So they may end up overpricing them or throwing them away. So if you're doing an estate clean out and you come across this at grandma's house, you instantly know this is worth money because it's money. It has a cash value. Same thing if you were in grandma's house after she passed and you found this. It was grandpa's old sports cards. You automatically know that you may not know a whole bunch about sports cards, but sports cards have value. I mean, there's a Mickey Mantle, probably second year card there. So that has to have some value. But what happens if you find a box in grandma's house of postcards and you don't know anything about postcards? And just because it's old does not mean it's valuable, but these all do have some value. So what happens if you're looking through that box and you come across this postcard? It's pretty neat. It's a studio photo of some old baseball player. But, is that worth anything? Well, it just so happens that this was Walter Johnson. It's a real photo postcard that's sold for $23,000. So would you throw $23,000 away if you found it in a box at grandma's house? Probably not, but look at the postcards. Same thing. Here's a postcard. It looks like some foreign language. I don't know anything about it except that it's a Alphonse Mucha postcard advertising, and it sold for $1,800. Or this nice drawing postcard. If you didn't know anything about it, you wouldn't know to look up the artist there, who happened to be Raphael Kirchner. And this particular postcard sold for $773. Same thing here, just another graphically interesting postcard. But if you don't know anything, don't know where to look it up, or just think postcards are useless pieces of paper, you wouldn't know that this is a work stat and it was $1,000 postcard, or that this series of postcards with women coming out of the smoke of smoking devices is a series of Samuel Schmucker cards, and that the set sells for $800. Or this Santa, great Santa, I'm sure you'd think, wow, Santa Claus would at least be valuable around Christmas. This happens to be a whole delight patriotic Santa, and one of the rarest Santa Claus postcards you can find, and they go for $1,200. And this one, it's a photograph. You might see this in an album of other pictures. You wouldn't think anything of it. It's looks like it's a railroad depot, and it sold for $3,300. So just keep an eye out for postcards. So this is just a real quick first segment of why to sell postcards. They are worth money. Not all of them, but they are. So we'll get into the next session or next series or whatever you want to call it. And it's going to be, I call it a history lesson. It's pretty much what's a postcard, how was it printed, when were they made, stuff like that. So keep an eye out for part 2.